Hello art students! This week I took one of my students to the Getty Museum. Earlier she learned how to capture proportions of the object, how to see simple geometric shapes within that object and recreate it accurately on paper. Now she's learning to apply the same rules to a much more complicated subject matter, such as sculpture. And what a better place to do it but the Getty Museum. I did a full demo for her, which you can see now. Definitely let me know in the comments if I didn't cover something or if you still have questions. I would like to hear your feedback. Also, like this video, share it with someone, support me on Patreon, subscribe to my channel, visit my website and buy a painting. See you in the next one. Alright, so here we go. Same approach as you just learned in your stylized flower, right? We need to establish on this page, full page sketch, where is going to be our highest point of the overall figure. I like to place it not too close, not too far from the edge so it doesn't feel jammed, right? And somewhere down here, because we want a little extra room, lift it up a bit, like the viewer, it makes a little more importance on the page for the viewer to sense that this is important, as opposed to when you lower it, right? Too much room on the top, just like we saw in that artwork by Rembrandt, feels like he's kind of lower, and we're looking a bit down when we are not looking down at the. Also, you know, you want to have room for signing it and whatever else you may want to do, right? So, with this one, it's easy down on the bottom. It has that rectangular short pedestal. I'm not going to include the whole thing, right? By the way, let me just get this into here. This is what we're going to be drawing, sketching. All right. So now that I established this one size, right, I literally just chose it. If your sketchbook is tiny, you choose a smaller size, right? If you want to just do half a page, you choose a smaller size, right? It doesn't matter. What we're capturing is proportions. We just need the right proportions regardless of the size. And so now we need to look for the overall width. Obviously, on the right side, it's the shield. And on the left side is her elbow. So if you can just look at the sculpture and imagine where the shield's coming up, the line, if it's like a plumb line, right? It's kind of going slightly to the right of the other arm. And then you compare it to the elbow, you can basically just kind of estimate that width, right? And you can just like run it just like this, straight up and down. You're running your pencil and you're kind of scoping out that size. It's about right, and then you compare it to the overall sculpture with that little platform, right? Because that you want to include that platform. If you don't want to include the platform, you size it up down to her foot, and that would be her left foot because that's the closest to us. But since we have it to where under that left foot we have that part of the platform, that's the closest object to us. That would be the lowest most point, right? So size it up to that. It comes to the knee, a little bit of the bottom of the knee. Then it comes up to that bow where her ribbon is tied under her chest. And then it comes up from that to slightly above the helmet, slightly above the head. So that means we can divide this in 3. So here's my center line. It's not exactly a center of symmetry, okay? But it gives you the idea for where the center of the sculpture will be. Just like with people, the sculpture has to be aligned with the center of gravity or it falls off. Every time we take any pose, the center of gravity needs to be established. because if you don't have the center of gravity positioned properly, you tend to fall over, right? So you can see that if we were including the platform in here, how would we know where the center of the platform is? I will just approximately throw this in like this. If I were to say, okay, I see less of this side, I see more of this side has a slight angle, right? It goes away this way. This one goes away this way. Probably it should be more strong. But the main thing is that somewhere in here will be our boundary, somewhere in here will be our boundary. Those boundaries, this point and this point, are always exactly the same distance from each other, always. So whether this is already correct or close enough, it doesn't matter. What we are looking for is that we are going to be centering everything along this before we divide this into 3 equal pieces, right? Or almost equal pieces, because we need to also consider this center. So once we divide that up, this platform is going to be positioned in such a way that this will be doing something like that. This will always be the center for this platform and the center of gravity for the entire sculpture. That's why before I even put in the thirds yet, I'm already sizing it up for the center, approximately, right? All right, so now let's approximately divide it into 3 pieces. Here's one, here's the other, here's the other. So this obviously needs to be lowered a bit. What we're shooting for is that these 3 pieces, these 2 are equal, and the last one is a little bit shorter, because her helmet came just a little bit under that line, okay? So I'm gonna do that. Here's 1, here's 2, more precise, and here's 3, and there, see how it comes a little bit under? So I'm saying, okay, this is my good sizes. These are my thirds. That means that if I take this now and I turn it sideways, this will be my width, overall width. But then what am I seeing in terms of overall width? That it's shifting this way. Because now that I kind of know where the center is, that my bottom platform is going to be centered like this, right? I know that even though the platform is equal from here to here, it's like symmetrical, I know that the shield is not coming as far, right? So this boundary might be here, and this boundary will go right here. And then if that is happening, then the other one needs to be a little further away. So what does it mean? It means that the platform that I sketched it in as is now might need to be a little narrower. So see how this kind of lines up pretty good with this one. And this one is a little further away to where the center of gravity, if you imagine, you look at that platform, you imagine its center, it's a bit between her feet, going almost through the knee and coming to her collarbone, where the 2 collarbones come together and under the neck, right? So if you drop that plumb line from her collarbone's neck down to between her feet, and you then take that height, that width that we were measuring, and you double check that, you can see that like slightly under her knee, slightly shorter. Now you compare it to that center, you can see that it is definitely slightly off center. but maybe perhaps not quite so strong. So I will move this right in here. I'll move this by the same distance over. And I will say these are my temporary boundaries. I think this is going to work. That means we can now shorten this platform. So it is still symmetrical, but it's symmetrical to the center, but the platform. But the body isn't going to be symmetrical to the center. Okay? Now, that just means that this is another plumb line. This is another plumb line. Since the elbow is up higher, this boundary is most important up here. This boundary is most important down here, right? All right, and this doesn't have to be super precise. It can stay very loose, but within close range. You can perfect it by establishing your final, points for your elbow and so on later on. This is just basically to imagine this rectangle within which the entire sculpture fits, as if that's the size of your block of marble with which you start. Everything else fits into that boundary. Now we're going to start carving out main chunks proportionally correct, right? Before we go too far with the figure, let's just do this platform. Because we've established it, let's not forget about what is going on. The easiest thing is just transfer the angle. So line up your pencil, close one eye, and get this angle, and bring it here without moving the pencil too much, right? So if this is good, looks like what I've initially sketched. This here, this looks like it's gonna work. This is a nice angle. Since it intersects it right here, so this is probably also a pretty good placement for where the plane changes and goes in the other direction. Now we need to get the other angle, transfer it just a little steeper. Okay, just a bit steeper. Transferred it, put these points, or get used to putting in points for your intersections. It's just gonna save you so much trouble for later. So again, doesn't have to be super precise at this point. Sketchy enough, but close enough. Here are your points. So what does it mean? It means like, look what is happening here. If you extend this, right, and think about where your eye level is. For example, if I were to walk to the sculpture, which I will actually do, okay, so here's, my camera is almost my eye level, just a little bit short. If I walk right to the sculpture, where will my eyes bump against, right? They will probably bump against right here at the hand, right? So if my eyes bump up against at the hand, that means that's my eye level. And why do we need that eye level? Oopsie, we haven't gone to the perspective yet, but you're gonna get a quick lesson in perspective now. We need the eye level because everything below the eye level we're looking down at, everything above eye level we're looking up. It will help you understand all the angles in the body, all the perspective lines. Here, everything following this plane will go down to your vanishing point and your eye level, horizon line. Everything here will be going up to it on this side and down toward it on that side, okay? All right. So while this, I guess you don't have to extend this too much. We are not gonna draw it all the way to the eye level. Let's just see where that hand is compared to our thirds, right? Because that's my eye level. If you were a whole head taller than me, your eye level would be nearly at the elbow. If you were shorter or sitting down, your eye level would be lower, right? So I am going to take my width again. And I know that my width is down to under the knee, just under the knee. I'm going to take that measurement again. And I'm going to go ahead and compare from under the knee to the middle of the hand, where she's grasping the shield. And I'm seeing it's almost a half, like a little over this and another half, but a little less. I already have that because this and this two are equal. So that means if I were doing exact halves, it would be more like this, right? If it's slightly less, I'm going to shave it off based on how I was measuring and what it was looking like. So that's my eye level. I'm not drawing it for the sake of the hand now, I'm drawing it for the sake of establishing my eye level for now. So if this is my eye level, it's messy eye level. That means that my vanishing point is just off the page over here, right? This is my vanishing point. That will make it easy for me to finish the platform. That will make it easy for you. When you don't have a whole lot of skill on dealing with these rectangular shapes, if you don't have enough experience in capturing them precisely, this makes it easy. Now, what isn't as easy is going in this direction, right? But at least you are establishing this more or less correctly. You have your center. You have approximate way to go in this direction, right? And a little bit lower, somewhere in here. And if you connect this now, you're connecting this, and you go from here to here in a straight line, and you continue that. It tells you that this is your intersection, basically. And then it tells you that this is your other side, just a bit higher, right? And your perspective is correct. So you can throw together your platform real quick this way, even though you haven't drawn enough of the cubes and all of those geometric forms yet. You can get this fairly good, fairly correct, right? This is, of course, only the bottom. It has thickness. All the same things are happening with the sides. They're all heading up here. This is going to go straight up. It's also going to go up in this direction. This will follow in this direction. And you see, I didn't even measure the thickness of this platform in proportion to everything else. I am more or less guessing because I already got this width. And if this looks right, if I'm looking at all the sizes and to the width, it looks correct, more or less. It's close enough. We're only sketching, right? We need to get, platform is least important, but we need to be close. So uncomfortable to do it at this angle. Okay. So that means we can do this one, following in this direction, and we can do this one as well. We just bring this up, and we connect this to very odd angle. Okay. And there's your platform. Perspective-wise, correct. Slightly wobbly lines, no big deal. Sketching, right? But what you want to make sure is like, why is this so important? Because by placing this line, it will help you place her foot correctly, and it's not going to be off. By having this here, you will land your shield, edge of the shield correctly, right? this little wedge that is seen will be seen in the right place. It's not going to be going off. And you will also make sure that the shield will land in here, that none of the body and the shield parts are landing anywhere off of the platform. Because if you don't project this through and you don't have like super good eye yet, you start drawing, you may miss that. It may look to where her foot's coming down, but there isn't enough for her heel. And the way you drew it looks like her heel is hanging off, even though you don't see the heel and you only see the front of her foot, you see. But the trained artist's eye will see that it's off, because the trained artist's eye projects all of this in their mind already. Once they see the little pieces of the platform that are visible, the rest gets projected in their mind. They see where the perspective is and so on, where it's going, where the eye level is, and everything else either adds up or it doesn't add up. So that's why, especially in the beginning when you're training your eye, it's good to have this. And let this platform sit here like this. Don't worry about that. Some of the lines might be showing through, it doesn't matter. So obviously we have the center. Same thing will happen over here. This will be the center of the platform at the top.
It's still going through that line.
Yeah, it has to intersect here. That means this is still the center of gravity for the entire sculpture. And where did we drop the plumb line? But between the feet, right? So we definitely will be placing one of the feet right here. And the other of the feet is going to be on the other side. And you see now that you are seeing the other foot, there is a little bit of an angle for them, right? You can even go in there and pick up the angle, bring it here, a little steeper. What am I seeing? I'm seeing that this foot comes a little more close to this edge, and then it does something like this here. And the other foot is a little further back, and it goes in the other direction. The toe is going to be like somewhere in here, right? But I'm getting a little ahead just so you know why I'm putting those lines there, right? When you're looking at it, you put this line down, but what does this line mean? It means that this is where you're already going to be placing that foot, and this is where you'll be placing that foot, where the folds are going to come down. And look, the folds are overlapping this corner by just a tad. So if you are wondering, have you done it correctly or not, you can just step a little bit this way and say, do I see that corner? Like a little bit this way. I see that other corner. I step back. Now I know by how much it's overlapping. So what I've seen is that I had to take 2 steps to the left for my robe to overlap this corner. And if I give this kind of angle, it just goes on the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my foot. I'm going to move this toe. See? And now my robe will overlap a little more this way, and it will come up this way. Okay? So I'm already planning ahead without having done much over here. This is where I'm grounding my sculpture. These are her feet. This is the center of gravity here. This is where her robe will come down and hang like this and go over the foot. Okay. Again, I'm just explaining why it's done this way. You don't have to start drawing those folds at this point. Better not. So, all right. So we know that somewhere in here is her knee, right? This came up to under the knee just a little bit. So I'm also seeing that the way she's standing. Why am I putting this line here for the knees at this angle, for example, right? Because this will be the level of the knee. I remember that the center of gravity was coming almost through the knee. So this knee is going to be like the kneecap is going to be like visible right here. Okay? This is like, you can draw it as a somewhat rounded, somewhat trapezoidal shape, doesn't matter. But it was almost on the center of gravity. It was like very, very close to it, right? And so That's what I'm doing. This is my center of gravity. The collarbones are going to be here somewhere. And the knee was kind of like touching it like this. Okay? So that's a good position. Of course, this is the foot. And you see that I position it here. If you were drawing it, you position it here. And you double check what is happening with the foot. The foot goes in, ankle becomes a leg, goes toward the knee. Is that the basic dynamic of the leg? Mm-hmm. You go in there, you can measure that angle because you see where the folds are. Mm-hmm. They're found that looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. We'll keep this angle. All right, so that is shaping up pretty well. Let's add a little bit more of the outline and fit everything else within, right? The reason that I went for this knee and connected it is because we already had this here, but our next step is to figure out where her top overlaps her skirt, right? That overlaps right around the crotch area, for example, right? The crotch area usually is half and half of the body, especially in the classic sculpture. So let's double check. So now we're ignoring the platform and we're going just the feet to the crotch and from the crotch up. It comes to the center of the helmet. Obviously the top of the helmet is higher than her actual head, and right where that extension over her eyes is coming off of the helmet, that's her top of the head, right? So it is half and half. So now if we take a measurement, or make a mark, this is the bottom of her foot. Let's take it from here, like kind of between here and here. Half to, let's shave off the helmet approximately. Let's say the rest is a helmet. This is where it's going to be extending. Where is going to be half between here and here, right? Like, is this half and half? It's kind of like, let's figure it out. What if we do this? This is 1/2. This is the other. A little too much, a little lower. Okay. This one and this one. Looks good. Close enough for what we are doing. Learning proportions, right? Okay, so that means this is her crotch. This is where her leg's going to be coming together. And her dress is going to be overlapping. The dress is overlapping at an angle, which is opposite of this angle. Why is there this angle? Not only one foot's a little more forward, but also she is leaning on this hip here, see? So because she's leaning on this hip is higher than this hip. Therefore, the knees are equal distance from the hip attaching to the pelvis, right? So if the pelvis is doing this angle, the knees are doing this angle most likely, unless she's throwing one foot in the air or something, okay? But she is standing. So that means that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking like, this distance is a bit short. I would like to compare her entire length of the leg to the knee. And yeah, it does go a little bit almost to the belly button. I think that dentist indicates her belly button, which is quite a bit above here. And I'm assuming that it's because what she's doing is she is putting this leg forward, but this is a little more foreshortened. So perhaps what I'll do is, for now, I will not totally settle on this distance here. For now, I'll still be keeping in mind the fact that it could be just a little bit lower, or it's to where this comes a little lower and the leg extends a little past. We'll decide on that later. So this is here at a different angle compared to the knees and the hips. So because it's an easily visible line, we can transfer it. Looks good. And somewhere in here it's going in the other direction, making folds. We'll figure it out later. Right now, this is good enough. The interesting thing is this knee here, the other one is hiding behind somewhere in there, and all these folds are overlapping, right? So because we have this foot, we can see and compare. This is kind of like the position of this foot. We can see and compare what is happening to the leg outline above this foot. So again, if you want, you can even put in a plumb line in here, and you can put your pencil out there and compare what is happening. So what I'm seeing is that at the place where the toes are visible last, if I put a plumb line, I see that this is coming in some, and then it's coming way over to the other side of this plumb line. Well, maybe not quite as strong of a curvature. That's where, you see, there's this curvature, and this is kind of repeating. So we can compare this to here, and then we can compare this to that. Similar, but not exactly. So this is still staying more or less on the center and a little bit to the left of center, right? It kind of already helps you see the size of the leg. It's going to be perhaps something like this, right? And something like this. So it helps you see that the other side is not too far. They're almost the same. So we can say like, all right, so, but we do know that it's coming way on the other side. So let's be a little more careful. So this goes this way. We'll push this a little to that side. We'll bring this over to this, perhaps less curvy. And so it's approximately giving you the outline for the other side, and it's extending more to the left. Then what is happening, there's a few other folds that are visible from behind, expanding it that way a bit more. And then right where this fold's coming, despite all of their zigzaggedy appearance, it starts going in, right? Something like this. This is an approximate direction, telling you there is a direction. And then there is a more folding, extending, and then the elbow. And where is our elbow, we'll be deciding soon. Okay, so got this placed. Now we need to find that tie under the breasts, because remember that was kind of related to it. From what I remember, it was slightly below the tie. So we can go back, take our initial measurement. And say, okay, yeah, it does fall under, quite a bit under, so you could go a bit higher. So basically, the tie is now not on center of symmetry. It's coming off, because you can see where her collarbone is. The tie is starting to be like quite a bit off. It will be in here. Then this is our other mark. So it seems like her whole umpire waist is up here somewhere. So then this seems to be coming in all right. And now you see how the figure is shifting more into this area, right? You can even drop a plumb line from the collarbones again down toward her, between her feet, and see where how is the body lining up in this area, right? And it looks like it's equal, at least at the waistline. But here it shifts more forward, and it gives you that movement, kind of like that. And here it expands, expands. So, and then there's shoulders, head, and all of this stuff. So I'm looking at it, I'm thinking like, all right, so between here and the boundary, it's too close. There isn't enough room to fit our shield. And the shield, by the way, is coming almost to here, so this is where our hand is going to be. And our shield is going to go right in here. Our shield is going to like expand toward this. Come in a bit more here, touch down on the edge. The hand will go over the shield. The the top's edge is going to be here. But what we need is we need to be able to fit the hand and this whole turn, right? But that hand doesn't come to here. So everything can be slightly narrower. That's what I'm driving at. That this could be slightly narrower. So basically, like she's not as wide as I'm so far made her. Okay, perhaps. That's your sensing of the proportions. Now it gives us more room for her hand, grasping the shield, her thumb, and so again, I don't want to go too far. Approximate, say approximate. Where's her elbow, for example? So if we found this, and this is under her breasts, where's her actual waistline? The actual waistline, imagine the rib cage in here, and her waistline would be right in here. See? That's why I brought this in a bit, and then I flared it out. So I'm already keeping an eye on her approximate waistline under her clothes. Why is that important? You always want to keep an eye on the actual waistline, which starts right under the rib cage here, because the elbow lines up with the actual waist. Remember? So in this case, the arm goes a bit back, so there is a slight angle there for that pushing back, for shortening. By the way, you see the space, right? You see the shape of the space between her body and her arm. You can throw it in approximately, knowing that the elbow is going to be here somewhere, right? And then you can compare, like, okay, I see how it could be a little steeper up here, and then her arm can come here, and then it can go up like this, right? It needs to do something like that. All right. Then this here needs to be, like, once again, slimmed down. Open up the space. So again, it's because you already placed this proportion here that you can throw this in here. Her arm will extend over here. Now you can do it with more or less straight lines. The way it's folding, the elbow is behind there on the opposite side. There's a muscles overlapping. That's why they don't make the same angle. And then it comes over to the shoulder. So on the other side, so remember I brought this in, right? So on the other side, it needs to be more in as well. And we'll bring this in a bit more. Shave everything off. And then it will give us better spacing between this and this boundary, right? So you see how the elbow lines up with the waist. Now we can bring this arm approximately up here. It doesn't go very far. No, it doesn't, because like it comes up, then the clothes starts overlapping, and something is happening about the shoulder. Why am I throwing it like right here in here? Because I know that it's going to be doing something like that, and I can also figure out this length. I can measure this hand and the arm, and compare it. So from the wrist to the elbow, where it's folding in, and from the elbow up to the shoulder. So what I'm seeing is that perhaps it's a bit lower here, from the wrist to here, and from here to here. It's about right. So I've lowered it a bit, and so I would want to lower this a bit because I'm getting it to be more narrowed down. And you see how I'm doing this with the turn? Her body is basically mostly cylindrical shape, especially around the rib cage. It is slightly tilted, so it is as if I am drawing a cylindrical shape in here, and we are already looking up. Eye level is here. That means anything that is cylindrical going up from the eye level is going to be opening up more and more and more and more and a lot more, right? So I'm looking at that. I'm looking like it's not too strong yet, but it's something like this. And it's also at a slight angle. All right, so that means we can lower this, hide it behind her arm, and this makes more sense now. By the way this comes down, it becomes also, it goes over her hip, and it needs to flow right into her leg, knee area. If it flows right into here, there's going to be a few more folds, and out of that will be coming out the rest of her leg with the folds, narrower toward the ankle, and then her foot. All righty, so there'll be a bit more of an angle to this foot. I'm going too far again with that, so stay back. Alrighty, so now that we've got that, we got corresponding one, we can add this in here, a little better lines, a little more precise before we go too far. Let's position her breasts. The breasts centers are also kind of, you can kind of scope it out, just a similar angle, especially across the front of the chest. If this is where her thigh is, it will be following the curvature of her body a little bit more like that, and so on. All right, so you know what? I'm looking at this now. I'm thinking like this is still too high. It's probably because I didn't quite measure these proportions precisely. Because if you measured it out and you're looking at it, and now especially when I narrowed it, and it looks a little longer than what you're seeing, then perhaps now is the time before you go too far to just stop, reevaluate. So I'm going to go and just re-measure it much more carefully. For example, I'm going to take a measurement from the foot to under the knee, from the under the knee to just under her belly button, under her chin, and I'm going to compare it to this overall. Okay, so this measurement here comes here to just, it's supposed to come to just under her belly button, but it's coming up too high. So it seems like she's stretching way too high, and there isn't going to be enough left for her head and all of this kind of stuff. Okay, no problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to just lower this a bit. And let's say this is not under her kneecap, it's at her kneecap. That will shorten this leg a bit. It will make this a little longer. And our new proportion is gonna be better. All it takes is just a little bit of that change. So just a little bit of that change. This is still half and half because we are doing the crotch. Still good, so this is staying. That means that now that we changed that, we need to just lower this a bit. If we lower it like this, how is this main shape compares to what you see? Seems better. There's a thickness to it. Let's add this thickness to the lower rather than upper portion. Okay, so in that case, this comes down once again. This expands. This expands. We just need to make sure that we still have it more or less half and half. This becomes a slightly stronger turn. This stays. This is slightly stronger turning. That's her robe. That's her robe on the other side. See how this needs to be lowered in the same manner as before. And we're still comparing this shape to what we're doing here. Right? Something like that. And work on this one a little bit later. But we just need to make sure that this shape here still looks proportionally good. I'm probably bringing this in too much here. Bring it more this way. There we go. Okay. This just barely overlaps behind her thumb, but this is still connecting to the knee. And this is still connecting. Everything's still connecting. All right. This is still overlapping here, and this is still coming down. This stays because it was a good position, because it was right over her crotch, which is half and half of the body. So once you definitely got the proper placement, you don't want to move it. Okay? Everything else could be moving. This doesn't need to, shouldn't. This is the folds that are going to come out in the other direction here. All right, so as this was shaping up, she was starting to look more like she's leaning more that way, right? More standing on this foot and leaning more toward that direction. All right, so now that we've done this, remember this got shortened? And let's transfer that size over here. And this is kind of like where her top of the shoulder starts. So if we measure that from the wrist to the elbow again, from the elbow up, this is where the rope is going in the other direction, and her shoulder ends up being lower. Right? Okay, so now that we're coming to the top of the body, what do you see in the shoulders? You see that they are also lining up at a similar angle. So the hips to knees distance is always the same on both legs. So unless the legs are like really moving a lot, the distance will be the same, but this angle could change. But if she's standing, it's more likely to be the same as the hips, which is why the extended part over here, over the hip here, and the extended corresponding part is more like over here. And the angle is similar. Okay? This angle is also similar in this pose. This is also similar, the chest, which is also coming down now. Basically, all of this is a little more in the shadow. And the shoulders are also imitating that angle because she is not changing her upper torso position too much. And you can just take that angle over there, bring it over here. It's extremely similar. So now, let's see if these proportions are better. Okay? So I will check this proportion and find something that I already drew that it looks good next to. It's definitely shorter than this, and it's almost like half of this, and it's definitely shorter than this position. So I'm gonna go take this size and compare it here and here. It's about right. So it's close enough for our sketching. And I'm giving it slight curvature, see? It's not exactly straight line. It's straight enough, but it's already curving because we're gonna be curving because of the shoulders even more, you see? And it kind of starts to help us to top off the shoulders. So because of that, it's easier to now place the head. This is going to be her collarbones right here. Collarbones are gonna come in here. See how the collarbone is almost on this line, but not quite. Just that, like the very, very dip, slightly lower and across the shoulder. Because the collarbone is coming out here and going toward the shoulder connection, right? And there's still curvature on the shoulder before it does all of the muscular things. And then this angle is coming up, and from the collarbone, there's the tendons in the neck, muscle and tendon, and in this case, points us almost to the ear, right? It's slightly to the right of the center of gravity, and because it's slightly to the right, you can just like put it in here lightly, and try to imitate the neck and this connection, basically, even if approximately so far. So on the other side, what I'm seeing is that the neck is like not super wide. And what it is doing is like it's kind of part of this on the other side is coming out of there. Part of it starts rounding off, connecting to the line going toward the shoulder. The shoulder is raised up and it's almost straight across toward here. Slight curvature, slightly more down here longer, a little less shorter, a bit shorter here on this side. Basically, you don't want to have it too far, because if this is your actual shoulder right here, the very tip, and you measure this and you measure that, you want it to be shorter because of the foreshortening. Right? All right, so that means everything here starts going slightly down this way, everything here slightly down that way. We need our placement of the elbow. How are we going to figure out the elbow? Well, we have this length here, first of all, right, to the elbow. It's going to be extremely similar to this angle, but perhaps a bit before shortened. So you can measure it over there and you can compare it. Yeah, it's definitely slightly shorter, but the other thing is if you already found the tip of your shoulder, that means this is sort of like a rotational point, right? From here it goes like that, right?
Oh,
And if it comes to your waistline, actual waistline, then see how this one is also continuing through. So it basically is the same radius, because the arm in this case is your radius for the rotation over here. This one is rotating at this place, and it can go like that and like that, and this one is rotating at this place. So the elbow, we compare it to the breast line. It's slightly higher. You can even see there's a strong fold over the breasts, kind of makes it a little pointy in that area. And transfer that angle. And you can see that if this is where the fold is going to be, right? And I compare it more like at that angle, then my elbow should be somewhere in here. And from that elbow, the arm will be going up toward the face. I've already kind of indicated this here approximately. So it's going to be going up and folding at the hand, right? At the wrist, which is going to be somewhere in here. So again, how do we figure out where the wrist is, right? You can look at it and first of all compare the angle. So if you compare the overall angle of the hand from elbow to here, and then of course this goes over, extends slightly. But if you compare this angle is good, and you can drop a plumb line, that's one way, right? And you can see like if my arm is overlapping something of this nature, where this comes down, looks like I see just a teeny bit of like daylight behind there, right? That's one way. The other way, you can compare this to where it's in front of the face, for example, and you see it slightly below eye level. We didn't do any eyes, but it seems like it's kind of heading in the right direction. And the other way, you can measure the whole arm from wrist to elbow and compare it to the rest. So I'm going to take the elbow to the wrist there and compare it and see that basically this and this are the same sizes. Okay, from where the shoulder, highest bump in the shoulder. I'm gonna now take out this line so it's not confusing. And I'm now gonna, for now, I'm just doing it like a big teardrop here. And I'm going to start bringing this down a bit. And how do we know where it goes? We need to make sure that as the curvature continues, it comes right to the elbow, right? So that's at least somewhat visually. All right. So looks like this is all right here. Looks like this continues along a bit and then goes under. Pretty thin. So there's her bulkiness of her arm, basically, right? If this is good enough for our folds and for our breasts, where does this go? So I see how I threw this line in, and I have this to compare it to. You just look at that. You look at that fold, and you see that the angle of it points to under her chin. Seems like about the right angle, right? So her chin is going to be somewhere in here. There. Why? Because I already got this, and I got this little space here. So not super precise yet because we still didn't put the whole head in, but it's close enough for now. So let's figure out the whole head situation. So we have that. Keep an eye on that center of gravity because it's important how the head connects to the neck in this, right? If this is pointing us to the ear, somewhere in here, how would this work? Would this work out all right? Okay, so I'm putting in the first line, which combines her chin and the front of her overhang from the helmet. It's an easy line because it also goes right to the hand, right? You can go in there and measure it and transfer it over. Looks like it's a lot stronger. Let's add it a lot stronger. And come to think of it, the hand folds. So we don't see the hand the full length. We see the hand coming up and starting to fold right before it hits the helmet, right? So it looks like if the helmet is here, it might be actually a good position. Let's give it the angle in the other direction, fairly easy. You can compare it to that approximate ear position. Maybe the ear could be a little bit longer. We'll figure it out in a bit. But where does this go? It kind of goes above the ear and a little bit more that way. So this is where her possible helmet would be. Now this angle seems to be a lot steeper. And then the top of the helmet is doing something like that, right? The interesting thing is that you can see how with this shadows, light and shadow, and this shape is forming here under her chin, right? You see a little bit under her chin. All of this is forming. It leads you to the ear, a bit of the ear showing, but it also leads you to the back of her helmet. It's almost like a continuous connection in there. And that is, obviously, the neck connects to the head, right? The chin is part of the skull, so the chin does, in a way, show you where the back is. Back of the skull, back of the head. And in this case, it looks like if we draw it very precisely, and then we add a little thickness, that's the thickness of the helmet. See? All right. So if this is the shape of the helmet, there's some kind of fold underneath there. And then there is hair. And that kind of leaves us not a whole lot for the face, right? So now, if this is the helmet here, the face comes in quite a bit, right? But the interesting thing, she has that Greek profile where it's very straight across. So her forehead practically continues straight down to her nose. And what I'm seeing is that the nose stops about half and half between the chin and the visible part of the forehead. So you can even double check. It's like, it's so tiny to measure it from here, but at least you can get the approximate idea. So you see, comes down straight. It's forehead, it's come down. It's the shadow under the nose forming. We do see a little bit of the bottom part of the nose. We'll worry about that later. But then that means that her lips are right here, the division between the lips, the shadow under the lips, chin, under the chin. The nose width also connects to the corners of the mouth. And then the shadow from the helmet being cast on the face is just slightly above her actual eyebrow. And it's a big shape here, actually a big, nice big shape, where her eye is going to be connecting to. But this is approximate for now. Just approximate placement. So now you compare this distance here to the distance to the ear. It's almost like half and half. The ear is compared to the nose slightly higher. She's slightly tilting in that direction. Remember how we lined it up straight? The ear and nose. The ear kind of goes under the nose in a straight line. Here it's at an angle, so we are doing it angular. So for now, okay. Let's give her more hair here. Bring the hair down the neck. Nice angle of the neck from the hair. Combine it smoother. All right, and a critical part here is that the neck does go toward here, toward the collarbones. And somewhere in here it pops up like that, so that nice little turn. So then it becomes her chin. And everything blends with this shape here, shape of the chin connection. There's a little more shadow here that goes to the ear, shadow onto the ear, and then how much to add here, it starts to be fairly easy. You can guess. All of that goes under that part of the helmet. And this is kind of, this part is her hair, this part is her, whatever that thing fold is, I guess, over the helmet. And overhang over the helmet. This, let's bring the helmet angle here. More like that. And it starts, it has just a little bit of a more straight angle. And then it goes in more like that. This is the tallest part of it, actually kind of very similar to the center of gravity. And everything else is down, down, down. Okay. So we sort of completed the whole thing. Let's just put in the hand approximate here. Approximate, approximate. Now you can take a look at the whole silhouette. The only thing I didn't add is this little more explanation on the lower here, where it's hanging down, something like that. And the shield is sort of approximate. I would want to walk around the shield and see exactly what kind of shape it is, because it doesn't look like it's perfectly round. It looks like it's a little more out here, flattens out, and then perhaps goes in again. So I would want to see from the side if it's just an optical thing from here, or if it's really not exactly oval, round, or whatever. All right, so what else can we say? Like, evaluate the whole thing before you go into any more detail. All right, you look at that, you look at that. Did you capture the main proportions? Looks good. If we add this here, see, it kind of almost mimics what the collarbones are doing. This wraps around the top. This is a flatter part of the shoulder torso area. And this comes down to where? A little in front of the collarbone. Why does it come down in front of the collarbone? Because from here on, the whole body does something like this. The breasts are under here. Something like that. And so the fold here is slightly off where her nipple would be, and the breast would be doing something like this, you see. And therefore the corresponding nipple would be in here, and this breast would be doing something like this, and go under here, and then over here, you see. Why I'm putting this in is so you could imagine what's underneath and how the cloth, the draped toga is wrapping around it, right? Because if you know where this nipple is, you will understand where the shadow, this fold is not on the nipple, but there is another shadow, another fold that comes down, and it will be folding right under the nipple here and going toward here, combining with this other one here, right? And then those are going to be folding along this raised ampere waist. Then see where this is going, it will indicate where the tie is, the tie. But from the tie on, everything goes forward. Once again, wrapping around the belly button. Belly button is a little closer to here, a little further away from this edge. And from this on, it will start going a little more toward the crotch. It's following closely, but there's additional thickness of the fabric underneath. So it's, instead of going straight to the crotch, it's hanging over more, but it's only following in that direction slightly, right? And so the other folds here are going to be wrapping around her abdominals, right? That's why they're making that a little more of the V shapes in here. The very crotch is covered up. You can only see that this leg comes up in this direction, and another fold overlaps it. So let's first bring the leg all the way more or less toward the crotch, and then toward the knee. And then we'll go and put this fold in here. See how right in here it comes up? Makes a little nice, interesting little fold. Goes this way. And another fold is coming out from under there at a mild angle. Mild angle. And well, let's move it slightly. It's too close. I don't like how close it is to the leg. I want to see more of this leg shape. I see it more over there. More that way. There we go. That's better. All right. Yeah, come to think of it, that's where it's coming. It's not from right under this fold, but more like that. Okay. That one's coming out, and then it's starting to straighten out, and it hits right before this leg. That's where it hits the floor. Right here, it kind of spreads out. It has a bit of the thickness here, covers up a little bit of this foot, and comes up, becomes narrow, and right here it becomes a little bit wider, but right in here somewhere it's combining. So far I'll just draw it as one, almost like a tube, but right in here there's a change, like a slight wrinkle in there. Maybe later. You see? So now I'm seeing that, I'm seeing that. This is a pretty strong line because it has nice good shadows in there. Other folds come out from there, and then it also helps me see this other side, right? This other side is still fairly wishy-washy. So I'm going to put in like indication there's another little fold, very little. There's a fold that starts changing direction, starts changing angle. It's a bit wider. And as that goes down here, where does it come down to? It hides behind this one right in here, somewhere, right? We just want to get this direction right, because that direction is also showing us somewhat what the other leg is doing back there. But over here we get a little bit of a similar width to here, maybe slightly narrow. And it actually kind of has a interesting fold, kind of like that. And then that whole thing goes behind this one, hides. That's probably because it's somewhat following where the knee is. The knee is hiding back there, very thin little fold comes out from here and hides again. And the rest is coming out straighter. The angles change once again and come over the foot. So because of that, as we're coming more toward this foot, we're going to make a foot a little bit more pronounced now. So this is kind of like the toe. The toesies are always kind of interesting to draw. The big toe is always very pronounced. And of course, I'm putting it already here on this angle, because right here the whole foot with the toe goes in this direction, and this part of the toes go with a different plane. And the other toes are hiding basically behind it. I'll just indicate it like this loosely now, just so I could fold my folds over the toes. That's a very distinct fold in here. And from behind here, I have this other fold that's coming out, right? It's coming out this way, and then it changes rapidly, starts going up, a very gentle S shape. Within that, there is also another folding. It's not super important right now. And then let's clean up this whole messy area so we could see better. This comes here. This comes here, hits the floor. There's like another folding, also somewhat still following the curvature of the foot, the top of the foot, hides behind this one. And from behind all of that, there comes out another one that kind of goes this way, changes angle a bit. And then it's like, it seems like it's either hiding or has a little jog over and then right along the edge. And this is it. This is it for this side. All the other folds are behind there. And we have this knee. We have the folds that kind of tell us this direction. We kind of compare them to this. They're almost like a fan opening up like that. So that helps us see that, okay, this folds here, this folds here, coming out. And what we're seeing is that behind all of that, there's a little bit of another fold. In fact, this is just a bit shorter. Let me just, for the accuracy's sake, bring it a little more here behind those folds. Temporarily, nothing is visible. And then it becomes visible again, another fold back there. It's probably connecting to all of this section. It's not part of the leg anymore. And therefore I'm comparing this to the knee, to the folds under the knee. Seems about right. And now I will bring it up. It's like, for me, from my angle, it's barely visible. And I'm going to connect it. Now I'm just making an executive decision. First, I'm going to connect it to what's overlapping, hanging over the arm here, which is a bit stronger angle here. Kind of another fold in there, and then it becomes straighter. See? Something like this in here connecting. And the other fold that is appearing from behind here is heading for this width here. Kind of like now, because we're proportionally seeing things more or less, we can fit this in, right? We only have this much distance to work with. Another fold goes over the bump. See, the point for the bump is still here. I'm looking like it's on the other side of the bump. Has now appearing a bit more of a curvature. It's hiding right behind the fold for the breast here. but it also is giving me a little bit of this here, those folds right behind there. See, this connects to here. It's probably the overlap of this, what is it? Additional robe, almost like a shawl, right? It's probably on this side, it's part of the shawl. On this side, it's part of her top, because it's one overlapping the other and it's a shared shadow. All right, so bring it over here, a little curving over. The shadow makes it look more curved over the shoulder. So now this makes sense here, seems to be good. Now this makes sense here, curving. Now this fold here coming in, makes sense. There is a design. It seems like it's a Medusa design. So this design fits in between this and that. Coming down also toward the center. See why the center is so good to keep an eye on? But it's not coming down straight, it's slightly wrapping, right? And then where does it go on the other side? Well, we have this here already, right? So let's just make it a little more clear. This is where her fold is coming this way, turning to go under the armpit, arm overlapping, a little bit of the muscle thing, mass on there. And right in between this and that, the design of this opposite is coming out. See how I'm connecting it? So, and the rest of the design, all the swirlies fit over this line. So just for the heck of it, let's do the Medusa's head right on both sides of that. There's some kind of big design. Here's the face, additional hair space. The face ends up centered on this center as well. And the cords that are swirling around come in here, making a swirl and coming this way. So you just literally follow. And then the other one comes slightly from underneath and making a design swirl. It's making it like this. And the other last design swirl goes over here and makes that little bump. Same thing on the other side. It's coming out, not too far, it makes the first loop. And the other one comes out from here. And that one is actually coming out from the other side. See? And goes over that way. So that's how you think about position in that design, right? You first find that center, then line up everything else. All right, so everything else basically, let's see that this helmet, the very center of the helmet is actually almost like right here, and stays very closely to the edge. It's almost the profile. And right here is where there's that little division of the helmet. And where does it go? It goes right behind the section here. So this you can kind of pretty much guess. Nothing to measure now that you got all of this other proportions. So we're having this part where the helmet turns and goes under. Right, we're seeing under the helmet, the other side, because we're looking up at it. And we're also seeing that she has a little bit of a hair down there. But all of that is in the shadow. So I'm getting to where I'm pretty much every fold and things that I'm going to be adding are going to be also adding shadows, because now it's the time to separate light from darkness. See, like I did that, and it was so easy to just go ahead and shade the whole thing. There is a shadow across the forehead. It comes right under here. Might as well throw it all in right now and deal with that little tiny bit of a sliver of the light on her eyebrows later. Because this is such a tiny, fine detail, you can deal with this later. Now, we can clean up these delicate lines. So it depends on the amount of preciseness in your sketch you want to do. But you can like clean up, make sure that once you start shading, those shadows are not encroaching into the delicate parts of her face. Soften this up, because it looks like she's got a beard. I made so many emphasis in there. She has no beard. We're just going to lighten it up and do a much lighter shading when the time comes. Soften up the transition over here, so it's not so incredibly strong. Okay. Let's see. Add a little more detailing. It's almost like she's saluting. Let's make sure that she's not saluting. How do we make sure that she's not saluting? We're gonna make this a little more nuanced. This is wider, this is narrower toward the ankle, toward the wrist. Then from the wrist, it goes up. There's also a bit of a nuanced fold in the muscles, but right where her fingers folding, this is the little pinky, very little teeny bit of a sliver of the light, and then it becomes a shadow. Why I'm focusing on that is because this is a nice dark shadow here, easily visible, but see what is happening is that from this shadow in the pinky to the shadow in her arm that goes toward the wrist and to the elbow, it's all connected. So to the elbow it's connected and milder, but right here it's where it intensifies. And so basically all of this, if you connect it with first one line, and imagine this is all is going to be in the shadow, and then you go in there and carve out the muscle shapes, right? So right here I already indicated this is where it comes in. It goes along. This is right under the pinky. The whole pinky gives you the shadows for all the other fingers. They almost form like one lighter and one shadow area. We can just keep it as a one area with lighter shapes. Even the thumb on the back is lining up. So whatever the light on the thumb, it also comes right in here, and they all form one lighter area. Because our sketch is so tiny, you can just keep it like that. And from the wrist, see this dent here? So here it tells us the shadow, here it tells us where the wrist becomes the hand, but its corresponding opposite is connected to the rest of the hand and the thumb. You see? And even though the thumb is there in the shadow, you can almost like trace all those connections, connect them up. And when you're shading, then you soften up what you need to soften up and leave what you need darker and stronger, you leave that in place. See? So then from here, of course, it changes to become the arm. It goes a little bit in straighter, and then it widens over here. Is it really that wide? Probably slightly narrower. So now I'm like fine-tuning just how wide and how narrow things are going to be. Okay, so don't want things to be too over the top. This is not a cartoon, but close enough. All right, so where does the strong line disappears? But right here, right at the elbow. This is where it gets a bit washed out. Here we still have a medium type of shadow that is connecting us to here. So that means we can clean this up. All of this is more in the shadow. All of this is medium. Right here it intensifies. This is where your hardest transition between light and shadow becomes. And it kind of falls in this direction. And somewhat turning in here. There's a reflection, leave that for now. And right here, the very hardest, darkest shadow disappears. And your elbow and arm, and another shadow is forming. There is a shadow over the arm over here. That kind of goes a little bit over the clothing. Oh, I'm seeing that this comes in a lot more. So correction right here. A bit of a fold. Let's make it more pronounced. It's a bit of the curvature like that. And the other one comes out from under there, flaring out a bit. This is forming a darker shadow here. It's folding. So this becomes darker. Going straight, folds rapidly. And right here, another shadow, and it helps us see how this goes in. And there is another shadow under here. Interesting thing is, I like always to go along the curvatures of the folds. That makes it look very easily realistic. Okay. So you see how now you're like chiseling away more precisely at everything, right? And I'm not going and doing all of this yet. More precisely, I am focusing on now doing my precision and shading at the same time. That's the thumb to hand connection. What is darker, the hand or the background? So you see, you can continue in this manner. From here, can come on here, do the shield, do the folds, shading. This is mostly in the light. There is very little deep shadows, very little. So you can focus on keeping it mostly light. And then you don't even have to focus on shading it nearly as much. Because, so remember the nipple? So here's the nipple, here's that fold coming in. Again, right under the nipple, it's forming a darker shadow. That helps you position, those nipple positions initially helps you position your folds correctly. And then how they fold in under along this line. You can bring them up, fold them back, and so on. You don't even have to shade. If you just got the silhouette correctly and put in all of your major folds like this, with maybe just a little bit of the darkest area, you'll have succeeded already. Because we are focusing on proportions and not on proportions and measuring, right? And not so much on the shading in this particular one. But if you feel like it, you can still go ahead and do more. Just playing with the folds. I love playing with the folds. Okay. So, did you want to start? Do you have questions? Ask me questions.
I don't think I have questions right now. What?
Okay.
I guess when you were working on this area, right below her helmet, it seemed like, I don't know, I have trouble seeing anything but the shadow and maybe a little bit of the reflection.
Under the helmet in her face? That's all right.
Maybe that's just because it's the shadow's almost the same color as the background.
It's such a small area, it's not quite so important for you at this time.
Okay.
Because all you need to is focus on proportions.
All right.
And I'm just, I'm so into drawing, I get over the top sometimes, like too far ahead for you. Anyways, you see, I put those lines because I established the planes. Everything here is where it lines up along the knuckles, and it seems to be slightly sloping downward. Everything here is lining up along this turn of the fingers, and that's my eye level, so it's close to my eye level line. So it's nearly straight across for me, for my height. And then the shield, of course, is coming up. And I was going to walk around and see what's going on there. So I'm going to stop this for now.